All right, good evening, everyone. Typically it's 5:59, but we are gonna go ahead and get started by the time I'm done ranting for this. Oh, there we go. It is 6 o'clock, so we'll officially call this meeting to order. We'll do a roll call starting today.
Big Frog, District Two.
Charlie Simpson, District 3.
Charlie Hoover, they have District 1.
Dr. Patsy Pedrosa, Superintendent.
Dave Watson, District 5.
And I know that Director Proctor will be joining us a little bit later virtually. And so just welcome to all of our guests joining both virtually and online. Oh my gosh, I always do that, virtually and in person, not online, which is the same thing. All right, so now we'll start our meeting with our meeting announcement. Dr. Cooper.
Thank you. We in the Tukwila School District acknowledge that the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play is the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and the Muckleshoot people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have a responsibility for stewardship of this land, and we strive to work alongside the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial. We further acknowledge that the burden of environmental exploitation and systemic injustice falls upon the labor of Black and brown bodies in building this country and its institutions. We remember that Black and brown people were born and died working this land against their will for generations. We acknowledge the continued contribution of the labor of survivors over the centuries to today, of all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples in the building of what we refer to as the United States. As a school district leadership, we pledge to recognize and work against systems that have historically and currently enforced and create inequities among the people we serve.
Thank you. All right, now for those who would like, we're going to stand and speak.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we'll move to approve tonight's agenda with one, well, never mind, we'll move to approve tonight's agenda. Sorry, I was gonna make an amendment and I changed my mind. All right, so all in favor? Aye. Okay, now we're up for our first opportunity for public comments. So if you are here in person, would like to offer public comment, you can indicate so by signing up on the sign-in sheet at the front. If you're joining virtually, you can either raise your hand or use the chat box to type in your name, letting us know that you would like to offer public comment. So I'll give you just a minute to do that. I'm assuming, Deb, there's no one in person. All right, seeing none, we'll have, of course, as always, another opportunity at the end of the meeting to provide any comments. Okay, so first is our next step is our board discussion. We've got two items. This is what I was going to make a potential amendment around. We had our board goals set up to talk about last meeting, but due to the fact that we didn't have all board members present, I thought that was really important as we established our final goals. And we also do not have our board members present today. So I still think we can chat a little bit about it, and then we'll add it also on our next agenda for hopefully to be able to finalize and actually have some working goals. So when we met back in, I want to say July 8th, could have been June 8th. Either way, we met at a Saturday session and we talked through and decided that we would set 3 goals. One of them focused on anti-racist practices, the other one focused on community engagement, and then the third one focused on fiscal management or responsibility, particularly about how we as a board are ensuring that things are being put in place to support us and not going back into binding conditions once we are out of them, which will happen in a year or two. So I know that we had fully, like thought through, and fleshed out most of the action items related to the anti-racist goal. Two of them we have already done, which is exciting. The first step was to embed, some anti-racist priority language into the superintendent contract prior to approval. We did that. We wanted to ensure that it was a established priority for the person who's in the superintendent role. And then we also adopted the district anti-racist statement. The other items that we have under this goal was to establish kind of a shared approach. That might not be the right language necessarily, but really thinking about like kind of how our norms of engagement are going to be, particularly when things come up in our conversation. That might be an unintended microaggression, or it might be unintentionally perpetuating anti-Black norms or anti-Black sentiment that aren't in line with our anti-racist values. And so how we might disrupt those things in the moment. So we want to establish some norms around that. And to do that, I'll definitely want to, we'll work with PSESD to help us really kind of formulate what those will look like, so that then we have some really strong, and this will actually replace the courageous conversation norms that we used to have in our local message. That way we can have something that's more aligned, not that it is aligned, but something that's more our own. And then I added this just because I was thinking about it, because our goal as a whole is about creating or embedding practices that both support our collective commitment and our individual commitment to anti-racism. And so I thought it would be relevant to add something around each board member identifying one personal growth goal related to your own anti-racist work. And then we've got till January to accomplish most of these action steps towards that goal. And then the implementation of it will kind of take place between January and the end of May. So definitely open for more discussion, and of course, I'm going to have some more as well when Director Proctor is here. But open thoughts and ideas there. And then for goal 2, we need to flesh this one out a little bit. This was one that I know that Director Simpson was really invested in figuring out how we can really do this. And I know there were a lot of ideas that came up when we were talking about the board calendar, like how can we be more present in schools, or what I'd like to do lunch with students, or whatever those might be. And so I thought this would be a great place to kind of embed some of those. So it didn't necessarily replace a meeting, but was still a part of our commitment to how we are engaging with community as board members. So, and then the fiscal responsibility, or the fiscal one, I know you were going to look and draft up, and I'm sorry that I didn't have that added here, but we definitely look at that. That's what do you all?
We're gonna bring it back next meeting, right?
We are gonna bring it back next meeting, yeah, but if you, I just wanted to open up if there were any kind of initial thoughts or ideas maybe that folks had around this goal number 2, that then we could continue to flesh out between now and our next meeting.
So I guess, one of the things I think, I'd like to, incorporate these things into our existing, work. So in other words, the anti-racist statement, I think, should be in our race equity policy, which I think the equity team is working on, and or in our strategic plan as well, potentially. So I just want to make sure, you know, that we aren't kind of creating documents on the side. I mean, these need to be merged into the, you know, the core operating documents of the district, so that it's not something on the side. It's just, it's the way business is done. So the other thing is, these are like board goals. I was thinking, and I guess we can have the discussion about the operating principles later. To me, this stuff should be probably incorporated into the operating principles of the board. So they're just boom, boom, boom. These are the goals. There's a section called goals, and boom, 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 here's what we're gonna do. So anyway, it's just, yeah, I want to make sure all that stuff isn't separate, but it's just incorporated into the
Yeah,
all the operating principle, or the, you know, the structure, the system, because, you know, when we talk about anti-racism, a lot of it's about racist systems, so we need to kind of get inside the systems and and make sure that the work is going on there as opposed to somewhere else.
For sure, yeah, and I think we can definitely add that as an additional action item there. I think, one of the things that was coming up for me a lot when we were originally meeting about these goals is, yes, these are ultimately to support the system as we're moving in that direction and then want to embed these things in. And, I want to make sure that these goals remain about like us as individuals and a collective body and how we are growing, right? And modeling the work that we want to see, and move in as a district.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think I'll definitely get that added.
Yeah, and I would go back to, I think earlier this year, we had a presentation from the district race and equity team. And they had some, some suggestions, some of them were for us. And so I think we need to I kind of went back and reviewed it. I think there's some pretty relevant ones that we could, when we get into, that discussion.
Great.
Because also, yeah, not only the policy, but the strategic plan, the SIP, and also the budget development process. I think we're gonna be talking, I guess, a little bit about that later. I want to make sure that this is getting into the development budget, our internal budget development process, because that's a key issue.
And I definitely think when we were developing the strategic plan,
Yeah,
I think, we talked about our commitment to anti-racism, but more on the lens of racial equity. But I think we're really moving into kind of really having that be a central component. So yeah, we just have to get it built in.
I would just add that it's in alignment to, everyone here has drafted an anti-racist goal in our goal setting. So, and then we meet and update each other on that as well. So, that's our expectation as a staff as well.
So I think what I'll add here, and I'll leave the timeline a little bit vague, unless you have some ideas about when that policy will be ready. Because I want to at least put that we're gonna adopt an updated anti-racist or racial equity policy.
We just met and talked about that this morning, and we think we're gonna have a draft ready to go about 2 weeks before he's sent to us, and hopefully be brought in front of the board in October.
Great. Okay, definitely that'll be a first read, so we're
Yeah.
about to have some.
We'll consent it to you if we're to, yeah.
Great.
I can't speak for others, but at my workplace, there's a heavy emphasis on anti-racism and training already. And it's built into our performance assessment goals. So is there any reason there can't be crossover for this?
As in, sorry.
I take massive training. I'm involved in my organization's RSJ group. I actually help co-lead their casual conversations, they call it, or crucial conversations on basically bi-weekly basis. So I have set in my professional goals, lots of goals for incorporating just what's stated there. And
Around your own personal race and equity goal.
yes, yes. So is there any reason you can't use that for crossover?
No, I think when we think about, I guess for me, when I think about my personal growth goals, it's personal, it shows up in all aspects of my life, or it should, right? So if you've got things that, you're already working on, there's certain, hopefully, it's showing up here, it's showing up in your other interactions. So yeah, that makes total sense.
Okay, and I'm like totally for anything we officially do with the board as a whole, but it just seems like and not doing redundant work.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So I know originally you were gonna maybe try and put some ideas down or think through some action items related to that goal number 2. Is that something that you'd still like to do between now and our next meeting, or do you want to get some ideas from us today?
Either way, we'll put something together and then, if you guys have some items that you guys want to work on, be perfect,
Is there anything initially kind of jumping out, folks? If not, then we can just pick this discussion up at our next board meeting.
Okay.
Cool. All right, well, next up for discussion is the Wausau General Assembly.
yeah, so this one, I don't know if any of this, is happening next week. The General Assembly from Washington is gonna be taking place over at Hotel and SeaTac and, brought in the giant handbook with all the positions. There's, I think, 38 of them that we'll be voting on with kind of my recommendation. I'm thinking about voting for them, and so just kind of open it up. If anybody has any particular one that catches their eye, you can, by the way, if you're interested, you can get in virtually. This one, they reserve 2 days for it, and it usually lasts probably a day and a half, so it's kind of a grind to get through. It depends a lot on what parliamentary maneuvers people try and do and so on and so on, but you're welcome. You can get a Zoom link and, you know, it's virtual and I'm gonna go over in person just because there's a little more, there's things you can do in person, working with other people that are there, that you can't do virtually. So, but anyway, if there's any of them that you want to discuss now, or if you have something before I go, you can let me know.
Well, just 2 quick questions. Are any of us
Sure.
officers already?
Or what?
Are any of us officers or filling positions already? From this board?
Say that again, I don't think.
The General Assembly is voting on a lot of things, but it also is working on an election, right? Of officers?
No,
No, that
No, no.
happens at different
Okay.
time.
no, this is strictly voting on positions.
Okay.
And Dave is,
Or-
on the
Legislative,
legislative,
yeah.
committee of law.
So, you know, so I have the voting, for the district now. We have done in the past, if there's, and I've done this before, if there's somebody that has a particular passion about one of the issues and wants to speak, there is a mechanism for kind of, trading credentials for one vote. And I've done that with like Mary Kudakis in the past, because, you know, she's, so that's a possibility too. If there's something that, you know, if you really want to speak to everybody about, I mean, we can arrange that, so.
So this is good to me.
Okay, and that will be after the votes coming, the next thing in the process is a prioritization, which will be in October, and I'll bring those back, and every district ranks their top 10, and we've been through that before, and but I'll bring that back and show you what it depends. Obviously, it's not formalized until the voting of what the actual positions are, but anyway, that'll be coming. Okay.
Thank you. Great, before we move on to our questions only presentation, I just wanted to take a quick moment to just thank everyone for an amazing start to the school year. I had the opportunity, I think most of us were able to attend the kickoff event. And just like last year, it was just such this energy that you can't replicate in many other spaces, just this excitement to be there and this collectiveness. And I was really honored to be able to be there. Again, just thank you all. I know that the start of any new year, any big is like a push, and it's a lot of really long days. And so I'm just really grateful for everyone here in this room, and for every single person in every single building, doing the hard work to serve our kids. And then if there's something you'd like to share.
No, I think you covered it, but I'm just super grateful and appreciative of everyone who got, I mean, we're still looking at enrollment, we're still looking at attendance, we're still making sure kids get to rerouting kids and all of those things. We're still, there's always things that happen, but I will say for us, it felt like a really smooth start to the year. And I think there's a lot of work that goes behind that. The principals and the leads and the teams and the department heads and then the staff here as well. And everyone else that's not even seen here in this room. So many people go behind the scenes starting in June to really lift off some of those pieces. And then we had some wonderful volunteers, but also got like the front of, I'm looking at Mrs. Eastman. Who beautified their spaces, and we were out there doing a bus duty, and then they were holding up flags and working with traffic, and people came in and brought in supplies and helped us with letters. I mean, so many volunteers, so many community members, staff, everyone just doing everything they can, rolling up their sleeves. It didn't matter if it wasn't in your job description, people just did it. So that's what I love about Chippewa. So it was a great start. Thank you.
All right, anyone else would like to say? Okay, all right, so our questions only presentations, beginning with the enrollment and attendance 4th day counts. Any additional questions? All right, we'll just keep going on the list. Instructional minutes. Okay, next annual report, the sexual harassment prohibited per policy 3205 and 5011. Additional questions you folks have here?
I guess the only, this was probably just more a comment. I see that in the evaluation of the training, there was a kind of a comment to maybe make some of the protocols a little more aware. That's my only concern, is to make sure that, you know, particularly for our students, if there's any incident that comes out, that they feel hopefully have a safe space where they can go report it. And yeah, that's really good, because I have somehow, I mean, it's great that there are, well, it's not great that there are any, but that there's relatively few, but one always kind of wonders. I mean, it's a tough situation for a student to be in, so just want to make sure that as much as possible. So I'm glad that you're going to be kind of reevaluating that and seeing if maybe there's a few more options for reporting things or something that students can get to. So that's it.
Their topic of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one of the biggest themes that we heard when we were doing the safety and inclusion task forces. Not only did staff and students not feel comfortable reporting, but they didn't want to know how or what they could even report on. And so, you know, I know that's been a continued, it's a challenge, right? I know that there are some other things that we're working on as a district to establish streamlining and making things more, just getting that information out in a different way. And I think the biggest thing, you know, that I shared before, I think when we were thinking about youth voice and getting young people's input, is that it's only as good as what we do with it, right? And so, you know, as we are even talking about reporting, if a young person reports and we don't respond to that report in a way that makes that young person feel seen, feel valued, feel heard, feel safe, then they're not going to report again, no matter how much we put in place to make reporting easy. So just saying all of that as for you to continuously think about. I'm also curious about the Title IX coordinator. I know that was another big piece of just discussion that came up amongst the task force, and really just I think had some concerns about obviously not the person, but the capacity and the responsibilities of really what that person should be, or that role should be responsible for, and how that overlapped with the regular job that person was doing. And so just curious if there's been kind of more thought to that Title IX coordinator position, and how we're really ensuring that position and whoever's in that position is really set up for success, knowing how to support the schools and then implementing, you know, all the things that we're putting into place.
Yes, Aaron Dragano, HR Labor Relations IT, he, him pronouns. Yes, definitely. We're talking about making sure that even when we look at alternative ways to report, for students to report, that none of those reports are missed. And so we want to have backup. And so, for example, the athletic director is the Title IX coordinator by position. But we know that the athletic director also works in collaboration with human resources on any report that is received. And we also know that the building administrators will be the first party that investigates the reports. And so they will share that information with the building administrator. And of course, be on standby to support it in any way they can, along with HR. So that is the process. So it isn't just the athletic director by position working through these investigations by themselves. There's additional support.
Just one question, after all the training programs, do you do any kind of follow-up, not how, you know, this form that you fill out to say that you do is really nice and all that stuff, but the effectivity of this, did you learn anything new? What was important, what isn't, do you?
It's a good question. So we have a built-in like comment feature in the online modules, the Safe School modules, And we get some really good feedback actually from individuals, and HR team does reach out. And if we have additional questions, we do inquire. And I think some of the feedback that we've been responsive to this year has been just finding ways to make it more like engaging, because the tendency is to want to like just sit and, you know, click, but if we could find ways that would enhance that, and we shared that with the developers, and actually they did make improvements this year. So it's due by September 30th for all staff, and so far the feedback has been good, but yeah.
Are staff required to take that specific training, or like, is that like a state requirement, or do we just choose that one from a variety of?
The state requirement is actually the boundaries training, but we add that piece in. So we have a module that has a segment on the Title IX pieces built into it. So that is something that is not a state requirement, but we require.
I just wonder, again, thinking about the engagement piece. I know I don't learn well online, some people very much do, but if there might be options to bring in like an in-person facilitator for folks that would learn better through that modality. But I understand probably the physical component is a little easier sometimes those online ones. And I'm also thinking that the work that we're doing around the restorative practices and the circle trainings that we're going to be doing will only help increase the supports around all of this, right? And also increase skill for staff when a young person reports, because I think that's something too, is like it's one thing to know what like the laws are, and then another thing to know like actually how do you sit with a young person who's disclosed something to you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Hey, oh, wait, just one comment I thought of, is there, legal requirements to, so if a student reports an incident, is there a requirement to notify the parents?
I think we need to check on that.
Okay, I know,
It is a practice that we do. I will
Okay.
say that we
Okay.
do have a practice. I don't know if that's a legal requirement.
okay,
I
and
just know that
they might be changing because they
Yeah.
asked the parent, and I guess, I mean, we have had a situation in the city, where a girl had been harassed and the parents, you know, were coming from a place, a culture where the immediate reaction is blame the girl, and so that, you know, so how you do that and safe for the student is, you know, I think could be a little tricky.
Yeah, and I think if there's like gender-based violence as well.
Yeah,
You know, potentially you've got a young person that may be out of school or not with their family, and then we inadvertently out them because of the report being disclosed. So
Yeah.
there are definitely things to,
Mhm.
you know, really be curious about there.
Yeah, the legal requirement is actually to notify either child protective custody,
Okay.
CPS, or law enforcement.
okay,
But
okay,
not necessarily guardians or parents.
yeah, okay.
All right, next is the interscholastic activities report for policy 2151.
So I asked a question about, I mean, I think when most people think of interscholastic activities, they think of athletics, but it's actually more than that. I mean, our policy says, you know, any competitive sports contest, games or events or exhibitions involving individual students or teams of students in this district when such events occur between separate schools within the district or within schools outside. So, you know, the robotics, I mean, the ones that I can think of just right off the top of my head, I think are robotics, the environmental science typically goes out, the FBLA business group typically goes out. Band can go out, choir can go out, and the reason I think it's important to kind of list those, I know this is just the athletics, but is because I think we need to keep those on the radar, because those are important things that we need to watch, to make sure we fund them, make sure we support them, make sure we celebrate them. Because we had some really good successes, for example, this last year on some of those, so I hope in this report, we also include those other ones.
Yeah.
I think I probably have most of it, but I don't know if I got all
We can, so we were, because of the policy that said WIAA, so
Yeah.
we stuck to the WIAA component of the
Yeah.
policy. If we need to add more of the, pieces in there, do we, so my question is, Deb, in the past, have we included that in the past? Have we included that in the past?
of. I don't think this report, I don't think we ever have this report.
So, oh,
That's
so
just one of
actually,
those-
some of the
yeah.
rules is there. So, okay, so we'll just have to make sure that if that's part of that, we're just making sure that the board will make sure we update it.
Update the policy.
Update the policy to make sure it includes all of that, and then we have to make sure that I can't get that today.
Yeah,
So
sure.
we'll have to give this back to you probably in a month, because it's
Yeah.
gonna take us about a month to gather all that data, because there might be something new or a type of club that we're missing. So, well.
I think I got most of them, but yeah,
Yeah.
maybe some, yeah.
We'll talk to all the principals. So I'll have, Scott, we've got you and I will work on this together, and we'll get this to you guys next month, and add to that with this, on this last.
We said perhaps there's, 63 or so sports on here. If I look at all three elementaries, they're distributed evenly.
I believe they're sort of like they play against each other, like so they each had a team, last year they each had a team, and they were sort of the club. They were the league with each other. So with the, that was funded last year, just to remind everybody, out of ESSER funds, athletics was. That's not funded for this year. We got a grant from Special Olympics and we're bringing Unified to those teams. So just reminding everybody that's what they're working on. But the goal is for all three. Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure that this is necessarily the place, but I'll just name it really quickly. And I know I did last time that we had an athletic report. It's just how are we really ensuring that we're supporting our gender queer students? This is particularly highlighted this year with all of the stuff that happened at the Olympics, which if you didn't pay much attention, go look it up. There was a lot of really bad transphobia happening against people that weren't even trans. And a variety of other things. And so just, want to continue to make sure that we are providing opportunities for everyone to participate in a sport if they would like to. And I know that we might have a policy, but what does that really look like in practice as far as young people feeling invested, the belongingness and ability to be able to feel comfortable in a sport. Okay. Next is the Public Records Transparency Report for Policy 6030. Any additional questions here? Thank you. This is a busy report day for you. Thank you for putting all this together. Next is the staffing report for the 23-24 school year.
I guess I just wanted to highlight this, something that, after the 5 years of, teachers of color in the district, so starting in 1920 it was 26, we're now up to 44, so we've been making steady, continuous progress, just that I know we've been working on this for a while. And so I just want to recognize that it's moving. In a good direction.
Just out of curiosity, with the reductions in staff and faculty this year, did we lose a big percentage in that aspect? So I know a lot of these higher for them.
So Aaron Dragano, HR, Labor Relations IT, yes, we did. So we are at, 187 at full-time teachers, down from almost 200, just cert teachers. And we are, in addition to the reductions in force or the non-renewals of provisionals for the cert group, certificated group, we've also had some resignations. And so those are the positions that we are hiring back. And so that's why you'll see, replacements and I think we've got on the staffing report, but yes, that's happening.
Thank you.
And I do appreciate your doing this, because this doesn't very often happen, you actually look at that, big goals, and that here's, we achieved, we didn't achieve, and, you know, as you point out, of course, some of the, stuff related to, turnover was, you know, an unusual situation this year, so it's not really, you know,
Yes,
it's gonna impact that number, so,
addition.
I just want to acknowledge the impact and the difficulty of sitting through so many exit interviews, particularly this year. I'm sure, I mean, they're always challenging, I have no doubt, but this year specifically, but so many folks were leaving not by choice. So I just want to say thank you to you, for just holding space for people. And, you know, we hear so often just the way that you conduct yourself and are just so kind and thoughtful and caring, has an impact on everybody in this district. And so I'm just very grateful, for everything that you've done this year and before. So just, thanks. Yeah. Anything else here?
I just want to acknowledge and appreciate the page on the stories and that people chose these, which thank
Yeah.
you.
It's always a fun to go to you. Yeah.
It's fulfilling. for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next is our engagement plan. And this is specifically around the budget development for the 2025-26 year. Any additional questions?
well, I just wanna, first I appreciate, I was probably going to the after, so I appreciate the, doing it, so what this kind of says is that we're gonna try the budget advisory committee thing, which I mean, we've done that numerous times in the past, which I've been part of, and you know, it's been kind of marginally successful sometimes, but a lot of these things, it's not so much about what you do, it's how you do it. And so I appreciate the specific inclusion of, you know, parents, although I will say, and it's good that you're tapping into the committees that we have, the parent advisory and the student advisory. The thing I would say about parent is, I would say we need a minimum of 2, and I'll tell you why, because it's very intimidating for parents to come into this space where we're throwing around jargon and all that, and I've seen this before, and so they definitely need a buddy to be, you know, talking to, so in order to get, and the same thing probably is true of students as well, anyway, hopefully, and I know it's been hard to get, parents, involved, you know, everybody's busy, and particularly when we ask them to come into, you know, the space here, so the other part of this, I'm hoping that there can be some, I mean, you have your outreach to staff meetings, but also we need to have some outreach to the other groups that go into their space, like going to PTA meetings, like going to the Race and Equity Committee. And our last CFO did a couple of those, which I think are good, but that can be an important part, I think, of collecting information from those kinds of things. So, and I guess the other caution I would say on this, typically when these happen, you know, the CFO come in and will talk to the group and kind of present too much detail, particularly if it's talking about people coming from the, you know, who don't know all the ins and outs of the education jargon. So I would keep it as high level as possible. And the other thing that I hope can get communicated in this process is that we're in a situation where I mean, there's 2 things going on with our budget. One is we're tightening up, you know, within the district, obviously, but also in the key to getting to a point where we can provide services to our students that we know the students deserve is that we need to get a lot of more money from the state. And so, you know, helping people to understand that. Yeah, I mean, if people come in and say, well, I want the district to do this and this and this, good. But, you know, how do you do that? And typically one of the ways is gonna be, you know, get, you know, our fair funding from the state. And so we can help use this process to some degree to help mobilize some of our students, some of our parents, some of our families to, you know, get them to understand that so that they can go, you know, talk to the legislature. So I hope part of this process is and kind of trying to convey that to folks, and so that they can, and the staff as well, so that they can help in this process, because in order for us. I mean, when we're talking about the bargaining, the contract, which is 2 years, so during that 2 years, that's gonna help us get our things under control, but. At the same time, in the 2 years, we absolutely need to be going after the and saying, you know, let's get this funding system straightened out. And so we need that help as well, in order at the end of the 2 years, that we'll be in a good position to provide all the services that we need. So anyway, those are just some, I guess. It's good to do this. But yeah, it's the few cautions that
And we
I.
were gonna put more periods, I mean, we actually were gonna put PTO, we thought we would go to the staff first and then work with the principal to determine. Cause we have some schools that don't have a functioning PTO, so they're still working on that, so we didn't put that on there as an expectation, but. Last year, we went to all 3 staff meetings 3 times, and we went to every parent meeting as well, and in addition to the parent advisory and all these other things, so. I think this is just the beginning draft to get input on, but, yeah, this is something that we're trying to still, flush through, so that's good input.
And the other one piece of note here is, so, you know, we know probably 60% of our parents, English is not their first language, so how do you get that group? I mean, they're not gonna come into something like this because it's not gonna work. And so, you know, Foster had their family nights. I think that what I've seen work with, the families that were English is not their first language is, if you have a situation like that where you have translators, you have food, and you have childcare, and then you have the community liaisons helping to lead discussions within each of the language group, you know, not everyone, of course, we do everyone, but the major ones. That's how you get students, you know, parents talking, and then that's the way to collect information that seems to work. And so that's another one, and I don't know whether Foster's going to repeat, to the extent that we can plug in, a big plug into things that are already going on. So we can get this kind of little budget collection of information from those, that's how I think we've seen effectively get that information in that, so anyway.
Two quick, well, maybe 3 comments. One, I don't want paid meetings. So my overall comment is we're really horrible at putting on staff minutes. Because there's a lot of things I recognize that and not the common person would love to see that maybe extrapolated better. Then I participated in a capital budget thing years ago, and I'll never forget it. We sat in this room, they put up an Excel chart. They said what the goal was for tax. In our case, our goal would be for zero, zeroing out our budget. And everything we touched would change that calculation at the top. So we take it away and then we would put it back because, and anything we messed with made a change. I highly recommend that approach if you can find a way to do that, but then otherwise they don't know that faculty, 80% of our budget is like already by contract, pretty immovable, right? So, to get that kind of insight would be great. To the matter of folks we know to speak whichever language. The cities had a lot of luck with affinity boards where they have pictures and stickers and then kind of go which one you think is more important, and people are good with that. So I don't want to oversimplify. I'm surrounded by instructional experts. I'm certainly not that professionally, but just finding the last question I have was, I see monthly, I see the representatives which look good to me. What I don't see is time of day or the day.
Yeah.
Because if you do it, in the middle of the workday, that makeup's gonna be completely different than if you met on a weekend.
Yeah, to follow up on your issue about the capital budget you presented, so, I mean, that's, the other thing is, it is true, 80, 85, whatever it is not optional, it's not discretionary. So discretionary, so you kind of put that off to the side and then say, list here, and, there are some things, the other thing is there's some tough decisions, so for example, our community liaisons are not required. I mean, they're discretionary, but we all agree that they're absolutely essential, but it's important for people to see those things are up there, and these are some of the choices that we made. Now, you may want something, but, do you want to take off community liaisons? I don't think so. So anyway, that kind of structure, I've seen that work at some other school districts. We've never tried that specifically here, so to the degree that that could be done, that would be, I think, good.
And just two random thoughts to add, when you were talking, Director Lushley made me think about, just reiterating, using this as an opportunity also to like help inform and educate, so like what if like the first advisory committee meeting was like a budget one. And I thought the one that we did with PACS was really great, it was really informative for me. So that could be really helpful, so that folks, you know, because even if folks are really jazzed about like coming to the first one, and then it's like everything goes over your head, I don't know, welcome back. And so really just kind of meeting them where they are, and even in the first meeting, and then help bring them along the rest. And then very random, but you said something about childcare, and I wonder if there's an opportunity to lean into our partners for after school care around childcare. I know when I worked in programs, it was usually funded by the PTA, but if they had like an event or a PTA meeting, they would just pay some of the youth development staff to stay and hang out with the kids while meetings or something else was taking place. So that could be an option to think about.
Could both live in school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
In the past, some of the high school kids have done it, but yeah.
Either way, I mean, that would be better, honestly, but yeah, either way, but I think that's to the point of food and childcare. If we can put those things in place, that will get more folks present. Let's do it. All right. Okay, next is the CEE Student, Parent, and Staff Survey. Additional questions do folks have?
I don't know about additional questions, this one has come up, you know, year after year after year, the students, you know, the questions asked, most students are respectful of others. That always seems to be our really low, low one, which is, we haven't been able to crack that one, and that's, a lot of these, unfortunately, a lot of these on the CD data just cry out for street data, because we see them, okay, now what do we do with that, you know? So what's at the core of it? And so, yeah, the long part here, I mean, I think we have some strategies in place to try and deal with that. It's, and this will be one of the measures that we can look at year after year to say, well, is this stuff working? Because, I mean, this is not even all students are respectful, it's just most students are respectful. And if students are feeling that, then that's pretty, you know, definitely for me, that's something I want to understand a lot more about what's going on. And I understand, you know, child development and we could go through that process, but at the same time, we need to really be establishing a culture that doesn't, you know, have students feeling like they're not respectful of each other. And it's probably tied, you know, to the other one that also comes out of the work I do in school too. So interesting, if that one's not, you know, coming out, then, you know, they're gonna channel their energy off and other things that are necessarily beneficial. So those two, yeah, they've always been interesting ones for me. The other one, I don't think was included here, but is, do you see yourself in the curriculum? You know, that's another one that's tied into these kind of how do we engage students and keep them, you know, in learning and out of problematic essentially behavior. So those are just comments. I hope we can, yeah, begin to find out, kind of get some more detail on what's going on.
Yeah, I think when I saw that number again, kind of sitting really low, I think one of the first things that came to mind for me is, you know, what opportunities are we really creating, whether that's the teachers in the classroom or just as a whole school building, of really creating opportunities where young people can spend time just getting to know each other, building rapport with each other, just building community, right? If we're so focused on instructional minutes, when actually building community can be instructional minutes, and probably pretty sure of that. I don't know how y'all can figure that out, but I know it can. Really, that's what is going, so I think it's twofold, right? It's are young people engaged, right, in the content that they're being instructed on? Are the lesson plans engaging? Are the things that they're being asked to do, keeping them interested? And because if not, right, then, you know, we see that show up in a variety of different ways. But even if they are, if young people don't know the person sitting next to them, right? Or don't really have to interact with them beyond just you're sitting next to me in the classroom, and don't really have to engage in relationship building, then it makes that kind of disrespect, or it makes lack of respect easier to come by, right? I think another thing that is challenging with that question as a whole is like respect looks so many different ways, right? And so I may answer that one way, whereas the person against it next to me may answer another way when, you know, so when we don't have definitions, and I can't remember if the survey defines respect or not, but I think it could be really valuable to add some more like at least high level definitions. That's what we mean when we say respect in the context of this survey. So we can actually get more concrete data, because actually this is really broad and doesn't really, if you go up to the street, data would be helpful, right? But it doesn't really give us a whole lot to be able to say, what do we actually do? Where is the breakdown here? And it might just be that, well, they didn't look me in the eyeballs, right? When that is really actually a disrespectful thing in the picture. So I think that's a big piece. But I really think the more that we can think about how we're engaging in community building, providing intentional activities and opportunities for young people getting to know each other, learning about each other's differences is also going to increase that score. Where I did a assessment training today, so I'm like, scores. Weird. Okay, also just random curiosity, why ethnicity and not race, and aren't some of those races not ethnicities? But that's just the CEE data that we don't have any control over, right?
Yes, survey, I'm just interpreting it, but I appreciate the comment. I can certainly pass it on to the survey makers.
Yeah. I think generally I've had some overall, I don't want to say concerns, that sounds really bad, but just like a lot of, about, oh, that's weird, why they do it that way. And so I know that this one can be somewhat customizable, if I remember correctly, and so maybe it might be worth us kind of doing an overhaul and saying, you know, this question doesn't really seem to align, or again, we're asking about ethnicity when we really mean race. And I was curious too, I guess that, one of the questions, I'm comfortable interacting with people from different racial or ethnic backgrounds, and I don't see white on there, and the reason why I bring that up is because there's often white people that feel uncomfortable, or have, you know, challenges when they think about. So just all curious to me. 11, page 11, subgroup data.
Yes, so on that page, as was referenced in the questions, it was cut off due to a formatting error
sorry.
because alphabetically 2 or more races and then white comes after it. And so as I was transferring the data from one place to the other,
Sorry, that went a little
bit. And so I did put the updated information for questions.
Okay.
So we did not leave that report out. It is there. But
I'm not offended, by the way, just naming that particularly in response to that question, I was like, that's interesting. Okay, thank you, that was my bad, I didn't
No worries.
look at the answer to the questions, thank you. Anything else here? All right, thank you so much. Next is the early learning calendar for 24-25.
I just
Any additional
So
questions?
we're switching back and forth between 4 and now we're back to 5.
Okay, we'll talk a little about.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm gonna have them talk about that. Because I sent them an memo.
Right.
So can you talk about a little bit the shifts that happened? I think I sent you an update too in the board memo, but.
Yeah,
Transparency.
I'll try to bring it from here down to here. But you're right, there was some back and forth, and based on some guidance we had received that changed. Last year was the first year, as I understand it, that the preschool had been a 5-day program. And the idea there was to increase the amount of time kids had together to be learning. And then as we engaged with our leader coordinator from the ESD, they were very encouraging strongly of returning to a 4-period day. They felt it gave more time for the preschool teacher to engage with parents, and that's true. So we made that switch as advised. And then shortly after, the SD informed us that, sorry, you actually don't have enough instructional minutes now. Just that. So we all get our chance to practice flexibility, and so we feel.
We practice it a lot.
Practice a lot. I really feel bad for people who are just receiving the information. It was frustrating for us acting upon it. It was very frustrating for those receiving it, but I just want to thank Dr. Proctor for jumping on immediately and working with all involved so we could get back to the program that we now knew we had to have based on instructional minutes to meet the ECAP requirements. So that's how it came back to where it is now.
And so if you look at the schedule, it's got a mix, you know, it's heavier in the fall, 1 or 4 days in the spring, but, we need all the instructional minutes. It gives teachers time to put planning,
Yes.
and it's sort of, I call it a hybrid.
It's a
system.
good
Yeah, a hybrid
Very
system.
creative hybrid.
Yeah, it's very
Okay.
hybrid, yeah.
Which I know we talked a little bit about this in our one-on-one, but I think just being really transparent with families, because like the inconsistency of that, of course, can probably be a barrier or challenge, or even just like, I forgot that this was the day that we didn't have preschool, but we didn't have a school 5 days. And so if there's ways that we can really be proactive in the additional communication, particularly for our preschool families around, just a reminder, this week is just 5 days or whatever that might look
Right.
like, so that we can really be on top of the.
Yeah, and there was an intentional alignment as much as we could to, once we also knew about the TEA calendar, to further align it. So since we were already kind of in this wiggly space, we might as well clean it up and tighten it as much as we could. So they will notice that most of that will align better. And I think the initial confusion was around parents who are already in the system with preschoolers and older children. But parents who are now entering the system with just preschoolers didn't really know any difference, so hopefully they're not as confused. And so we'll just endeavor to do better as we go forward.
And I'll say our early learning staff has been incredibly also with us, communicating with families as well, but it is a good reminder that we can continually to remind families along the way, but that alignment was really important for us, especially for the families with multiple children, so
Yes.
it's a new schedule this year. We hope we've at least met everyone's needs and that we've aligned it to the state and Puget Sound ESD and the instructional minutes and the needs of our staff. So that was the goal.
No, I thought you guys did a good job of communications. Communication is one of the things, the themes that comes out in our history.
Yeah.
You didn't communicate, but you did, so.
Well, and I do want to thank Dr. Proctor because she came in July and had to quickly figure some of this stuff out and Scott pitching in as well. So she went back as well. So I want to thank you both for really trying to work. And we also learned a lot of lessons from this experience as well.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, so this brings us to our one action item of the evening, which is approval of the TEA CERT and TEA ESP 2024-2026 contracts. Questions, comments?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank everybody who worked on this. You know, it's obviously a very challenging thing to be able to do a contract in a situation where we're in the financial situation that we're in, and then in fact, get it done before school starts. So great job to all the people that worked on this. I do want to just kind of, again, echo the fact that, you know, this is a 2-year contract to help us, you know, internally get the money, but I think during that 2 years, we need to use that 2 years also to go in Olympia and continue to beat the drum about, you know, not only, and everybody in the state is almost all the districts are talking about, you know, ample part of funding gives, you know, to cover NSOX and all that kind of stuff. Also, and there are a couple of groups, and one I'm working with Equity and Education Coalition, and others are working to also do equity, so give us more money, because I did this little exercise, I added up, you know, if you take all the districts and say you add the percentage of, free and reduced lunch, percentage of, EL, NL students and percentage of, students experiencing homelessness, you add all those up, we're like the top, and we're in the top 10 of all the 300 school districts, and so we're on one of the highest needs school districts in the state, and so this issue of funding based on student need is a huge issue for us, and it would help us a whole lot. The Ample part would help us too, because, you know, I mean, everybody's talking about special education funding and MSAC funding and everything, but in addition to that, we also need more money for lab funding and all those kinds of things, so anyway, hopefully, I think this is a really, really good job of putting a good foundation internally, and then we could build on it. And Olympia, and hopefully in a couple of years, we'll be able to have a financial condition to be able to provide, you know, the services to our students that we know they deserve. The one other, I guess, little thing is, on the various advisory teams that seem to get set up under these contracts, I guess it would be, this is kind of a future thing, I don't know anything on this, but, when we set these advisory teams in the contracts, it seems like they never die. So there's no deadline. I mean, I would like to see a kind of stop time that then you review it. Okay, is this advisory sheet, do we need it again for the next contract? That's just, I don't see that in here, but anyway, I think that would be, you know, I appreciate your, you know, cost estimate for these is not that great, and it's mostly covered out of the OPAL money that the, you know, people are using, which is great. I did also want to comment, I really appreciate the work around getting the Medicaid reimbursement dollars. That was one I've been watching for a number of years, so, and getting the staff appropriately trained, and for those who may not know, this is most districts, so school districts can provide services for students that are on Medicaid or in this state we call it Apple Health. And, you know, we can get reimbursed for that if we meet the conditions of Medicaid, which is mostly about having licensed people doing the work and so forth. And we hadn't been doing that before. And so now with this contract we are, and that's, you know, whatever it was, $100,000, $80,000, which, you know, we need a lot of those little things, and that's really good. So I appreciate all your work on that. And I know you've worked hard for the wee hours of the morning.
So this is an awful lot. I read through all the enhancements. I have no bearing of the difference from before to now. So I'm just gonna, for the public's sake, if they actually watch the video, what were the two biggest changes to the contract?
I think the Medicaid.
I mean, I think, I'm just thinking about things that are new that have not been in there before. Medicaid reimbursement is one. And the other area that I would say that it's the ML language is that there's not been ML language called out specifically in this way previously. So,
Thank you.
I'm Amber Mom, Director of Student Services.
I just wanna, again, say thank you, not only to you three, our team here, but also to our union partners. I know that this was a new way for Tukwila doing bargaining, this interest-based bargaining, which I know, this was a big year to try and introduce that model. But I'm just so grateful for the ways in which, you know, I'm sure that there are compromises on both ends, but I'm just really grateful for the way that we were able to come together and really think about how we ensure the sustainability of our district, so that we can continue to serve the kids that we all love so deeply and care for. So I just want to say thank you so much to our partners, and to you all for just your hard work and your commitment to getting this right. For Tukwila, and we can continue hopefully to move in that direction and keep the momentum going in 2 years from now.
Great.
All right, well, all in favor of approval of the contract?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it is approved. Congratulations. That's very exciting. All right, so that brings us to our final opportunity for public comment this evening. If you are joining online and would like to offer some comment, you can do so by typing your name in the chat or raising your hand, or raising that reaction function. I'll give you just a second to do that. Looks like someone's hand might be raised at the top. No, just kidding. It just says Laurel in his hands. I thought that maybe that someone was raised. All right, give you 30 seconds to find that raise hand button. All right, with that, then we will move to adjourn our meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. We are adjourned.
Thanks.
All right.
Keep going.